Beth, are we streaming? Can we start?
Sorry, I'm learning how to do it. So just one
Oh,
second.
okay.
Okay, good. Okay, we're good.
We're good?
On.
Okay, I'd like to call to order our public safety meeting of the Common Council for March 15th, 2021. Roll call. Councilor Gibbs is here. Councilor Talon. Councilor Talon's here. Councilor Moore
Here.
is here. And Mayor Rosenquist is here. Okay, item number 1 on the agenda is an approval of the minutes of February 16, 2021. Do I have a motion for approving the minutes?
Make that motion for second.
Right. Mayor and Jeff. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, minutes adopted. Item number 2 is from the building inspector's office. Item 2.1 is a draft resolution approving parklets for the 2021 season. Can I get a motion to discuss that?
Make that motion.
Second. Okay. I see Joe is here. Joe, would you like to explain what that resolution will do exactly?
Well, essentially, it'll put in place the ability for the restaurants downtown who have the capability of and the desire to rent parking spaces for outdoor dining, as they have in the past.
Now, there are changes to this, though, aren't there?
There are a couple of changes to this, and I'm guessing the mayor wants to weigh in on it.
Yeah, if you don't mind. Yeah,
No, I don't mind.
Yeah, thank you. So there are a couple changes to this, primarily, and I am going to actually ask for another slight change to this as well, specific to the dates. There are two major changes to this. One is the fee structure. It's my recommendation that the fee structure that we adopt is slightly changed in terms of the parking spaces plus the tables. My recommendation, if it's amicable to the council, is to charge $300 per space. That is not a change from last year, but I would ask the council to waive any per table space in addition to the parking spot space. Right now, and Joe, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but this is why I'm recommending this, is that downtown businesses are asked to purchase the parking space for $300 and then also purchase each table within the parking space, as well as purchase tables for their sidewalk as well. And so what I'm asking is that instead of purchasing the parking spot plus a table in the parking spot, it's just a flat $300 fee for the parking spot.
So no per table fee. Is that what you're saying there?
Well, the table fee would be separate. There would be a per table fee, but it would only be a per table that's on the actual sidewalk.
Okay, so do we need to make a motion to amend this then?
No, because it's already in the resolution. Perhaps maybe it's not clear in the resolution, but it's the third to last, be it further resolved, which already outlines the per table fee and then a separate parking space use fee. The question in that third to last further resolved is the number of spaces that are going to be made available for use this year. And we added what we're calling the more what we call it, the Jeff Moore edition, which is if as we did last year, if a business wants to expand beyond their own storefront, then they would be allowed to do so with permission with their neighbor, which was something that was added last year. But the question in the blank spot is how many spaces would be made available in total? Typically, we limited the number of spaces available for the parklet. I believe, Joe, last year it was 21 spaces available for the parklets.
That sounds about right. And that was an expansion from years past. I think prior to that, it was closer to 15 or 16.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and as we know, because of COVID, it's a lot better. You know, it has been better for downtown businesses to be able to expand their seating outdoors during the nicer months of the year. And I kind of feel like, I don't know, Dean, I feel like I'm towing a moral line here, mostly because I have a downtown business and we did purchase parking spots last year. But I don't want it, I certainly don't want it to come off like I'm, you know, trying to pull something over because I have a business downtown.
Was there a question for me with that?
I don't know. Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is the same paradigm we've been using for 3 or 4 years now. It's ever since we put the local law in place to allow for parklets and sidewalk dining. So the only modifications here are the fact we're giving a little bit more leeway to Joe's office rather than go restaurant per restaurant, as you may recall in the past, where we had 15, 7 or 8 separate resolutions. We're trying to make it more efficient and combine them into one single resolution and kind of trust the process now that we've been doing it for a couple of years. So as you just said, the only real policy driven choice we need to make at this point is how many spaces are appropriate. Whether it's 21, whether it's 5, that's a council decision. And I'll leave it at that point. But yeah, 21, 22. I don't think, Joe, you've never turned away a restaurant, or can you clarify that, Joe? Has there been more requests in spaces in the past or no?
yeah, no, we've never turned one down. It takes care of itself that way.
So I guess I'm confused then. Are we changing any language, or are we taking any specific action on this resolution besides just, a motion to move it to the regular?
We do need to put in those numbers because we left that blank because that was a council driven policy question. How many spaces do we want to allocate? So that's the only question, I believe.
Yeah, and I would recommend if we did 20 spaces last year, then we do 20, the same amount, which I believe it's like, 20, I want to say it's 21 spaces, which in total that represents roughly maybe like 3% of our total parking availability downtown in that district. And certainly we're all concerned, we do have an underlying concern about the perception of parking and parking availability, but during, everybody knows that during this time, it's one of those things where we like to see that outdoor dining. We'd like to see businesses thriving in the summertime and having a vibrant downtown, and the parklets certainly contribute to that vibe.
And just to be clear, say we set a number, say it's 18, and then all of a sudden a few more restaurants request spaces, you could always come back to this body and increase that number.
So is 21 the number that we're agreeing on then?
That would be my recommendation.
Jeff and Jennifer, what do you think?
Well, it's
21.
definitely ballpark for what we did last year. So I can't remember the exact number, but it's within 1 or 2 for sure.
Jennifer, do you agree on 21 as a number? Yes? Okay, I'm okay with that.
Great. The other, just also another clarification per this resolution is the expense for installing and removing. The expense borne by DPW hovers around $1,418, and that is to install and remove each barrier. That is an increase from last year, but it's also it's not a profit-driven number from DPW. It is simply the amount of time that it takes our men and women to go out there, install and remove those barriers. Alternatively, anybody can also hire a private contractor to do the same work. I quite frankly don't know what that costs. outside of what our superintendent of public works has expressed to me, what it cost internally to the city of Plattsburgh. And that's also outlined in this resolution.
Yep, I see that.
Alternatively, it would be my, honestly, it'd be my preference, just quite frankly, it'd be my preference that DPW didn't do this work at all, and they were freed up to do DPW work. There are plenty of contractors and organizations in the public that can perform this work. Again, I don't know how much it costs for a private company to come and do this work, but it would, again, it'd be my preference that it'd be done by a private company. But I think most people have come to the understanding that our DPW department is available for this. But again, I mean, that's, it's one thing for us to, we're just making up the expense to have our DPW, have our Department of Public Works do this work.
I agree. And that's been something we've discussed and debated for the last several years. So members of council who've been on in prior years, we've discussed this. It does consume a lot of time. Jeff, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I can tell you about what it takes. They have told me that it takes them about half a day to do one parklet. So, you figure, if there's 6, 7 parklets, that's several days. You have to use heavy equipment, and it ties up several people. So, I would agree with the mayor. If there was any way that we could get some other people doing this other than us, it is pretty time consuming.
Yeah, and I agree. It would be really great if we could free up our public works employees to do other work. There's a ton of paving and other projects on the DPW list this year. And I mean, there's never an end to the work that department has to oversee. So I would agree with that as well. So then with that suggestion, we don't have to change anything about this final bit here, be it resolved about the fee of installing and so forth?
No, yeah, what I would recommend at this point is to leave that language in there. Anybody who wants their parklet installed can hire a private company, and we'll obviously coordinate with them as best as we can. If they want our Department of Public Works to do the installation and installation and removal, that there's opportunity for that as well. But I think maybe next year when we come back around, this would be the last year that we do this work.
Okay.
Yeah, again, my preference, the thing is, I didn't want to, when I spoke with Mike about it, I didn't want to just say, okay, we're going to get out of this and we're not doing it ever again, and kind of leave people in the lurch to try to search and find a company to do it for them. So maybe this is kind of like easing out of the business of doing this work, where we can certainly, where there's plenty of, it seems to me that there's plenty of private companies in the city and in the region that can do this work. So maybe we'll just say this is the last year for us to do this, and then, we'll focus our efforts next year on other work. But I agree, it does take half a day, if not a little bit longer, to install just one parklet, and there's plenty of work to be done throughout the city, which, if you're talking about 6 or 7 days worth of work for multiple people, as Councilor Moore has indicated, I'd rather have them doing that other stuff.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other discussion about this item?
Yes, if you don't mind, one more piece on this, and all of these changes will be added, of course, to the final resolution. But as per the discussion, I'd like to ask this council. I have had a number of people approach me, as well as I had a conversation this morning with the folks over at Wiry regarding the time frame for the parklets. It is going to be my request of this council to expand the time frame of the parklet to start on April 1st and not May 1st. That is a whole month of of room for the parklet to be installed, and then also to extend the deadline from September 30th to October 30th. And again, I believe last year it got extended. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. I think it got extended to
so.
the end of October.
I think that's right. I know Public Works is always concerned about an early snow, which could happen in October now and again, but
Yeah.
I do believe it was extended last year, yeah.
Yeah. Snow could be an issue. Maybe not so late. What about October 15th then? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember what we extended it to last year, to be honest. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I don't either.
Yeah.
I think it was October 15th, Mayor.
October
It
15th.
was mid-October.
Okay. So, I mean, like I'd certainly wouldn't, I'd certainly appreciate if the council could split that and say, from April 1st to October 15th.
Well, I'm okay with that, but we could still get snow on April 1st. I mean, lovely North Country, but I'm okay with that.
That's not a joke either.
I know.
That's serious.
It's happened. It's North Country. It can happen. But I'm okay with April 1st to October 15th. I think that as much outdoor dining time that the businesses want, and I'm sure that'll be, they're going to decide for themselves if they want that for their business. But I think it's a good idea. Councilors Moore and Talon, any thoughts?
Well, I just had one additional thought. Those parklets used to be pretty colorful and aesthetically pleasing. I noticed some of them have gotten a little bit run down. I think, faded, I should say. And it would really be a good idea to just suggest, that some of those got repainted, and it really adds a lot of color and attraction to the downtown. I remember when they first were put up, there was some really nice ones. Maybe even just getting somebody who would want to do that to make those, it would really improve the downtown look in the summertime, and it would look really good for visitors.
Joe, is there any guidelines or any rules regarding the design of the parklet? I know, again, when we put ours out there, I think Joe said, "Hey, you guys got to paint these too." But
No, I mean, actually, there are no guidelines for that. When the inception of these parklets a number of years ago, I can remember, and God rest her soul, I think it was Becky Casper who, when this subject came up, instead of having a standard for each of them, she liked the idea of them being able to individualize themselves by painting them a little differently or doing whatever. But yeah, we do not have a set of guidelines for how these need to look. And that subject has come up in the past, and that may be something that people want to address.
So Councilor McFarland just put a message in the chat. That concrete is best to stop a car, so it's safer.
mm-hmm.
And so Councilor Talon put in the chat that she's suggesting through Friday, October 17th. Is that correct? Is that correct, Jennifer? Is that your suggestion? I see that you're having problems with your microphone. Oh, lovely, lovely video meetings. All right, so okay, so let's wrap this up because we have a ton to get through, and especially the panel recommendations. So what are we saying then? Are we agreeing on
April 1st through the 17th?
Okay, so all right, so I've got that down.
Okay, great.
All right.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm sure that the number of businesses that have asked me will also appreciate that.
Okay, so, how do we move this forward? Do we just get an all in favor? So how we do this?
Yeah, you can call an all in favor. That will move the draft resolution to the floor on the 18th for final approval.
Okay. All in
And just
favor?
make that sorry to interrupt, just make that clarification, just so Beth has a clean record that it's as amended per this discussion.
Yep.
Yes, as amended. Okay, all in favor?
I,
Counselor Talon? Okay, I as well, so. Okay, so moved. And so now we have item 2.2, discussion complaints violations report. I think we have that report. We don't need to have a discussion about it. And item 2.3 is update on the rental registry training and execution. I just asked if Supervisor McMahon would just give us an update as a council, because we had agreed that this would be ready to go and underway in April, which is coming up very soon. So Joe, can you give us an update on where we are with that?
Yeah, sure. We're just about ready to go on it. We've compiled the forms, have the people in place and a strategy for, exactly how we're going to try and get this done. The entire number of dwelling units needs to be divided into 3 so that we can, get at them every 3rd year. So, that's good. That's going to be a bit tricky, but, we get our housing code inspector working on that. And we've got our new inspector. He's actually started his in-service training with the state, and also got him working on some proactive inspections. Any of you sitting counselors who were on last year, the year before, probably remember that, most of the work we do is reactive to complaints and stuff, but we have tried to get out there and do some proactive inspections, getting eyes on properties, on our own ahead of time. And we started doing that again. I've sent a couple of reports to the mayor's office that I'm not sure they've gotten to you guys yet or whatever, but we've started doing that again with our new inspector, as he shadows our other inspectors. So that's been successful in the past, and we try and squeeze that time in because we know that curb appeal is important to the community. So, yeah, I'm not sure that answered all your questions, but.
Yep. Right.
Sorry, I did want to, I didn't want to skip over 2.2 because of that. And I did want to indicate and acknowledge Joe's office for providing that proactive report. I know that a lot of people have concerns that sometimes when there's code violations, they have to call in, and that is going to be the case. Can't be everywhere all the time, but Joe's office has been taking a more proactive approach with the extra help to get his people ramped up. And I did want to just take a moment to acknowledge that as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Okay.
It seems especially important this time as the snow starts to melt. The garbage that, if garbage bags were frozen into the snow and they got thrown in the trash, some of it was left behind. Now that now that the snow started to melt, you can see that in some of the yards and stuff. So, we're getting the owners out there to rake it up.
Okay, thank you. Item number 3, 3.1, there's a draft resolution approving the 2021 animal shelter agreement with Eagles Nest Veterinary Hospital. Any discussion on the item?
Yeah, this is a yearly contract that we engage with Eagles Nest Veterinary Hospital for dangerous dog shelter. We also have a contract with Elmore SPCA, a yearly contract with Elmore to drop off animals, dogs and cats primarily. But unfortunately, Elmore does not take dangerous dogs. And so we need an outlet for dangerous dogs. And I believe Eagles Nest provides this not only for the city, but they also provide it for a number of other municipalities throughout the county. So it's a standard contract that we enter into with them every year.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of moving this forward to Thursday's agenda?
So moved.
Okay. All right, so moved. Okay, item 3.2, parking violations bureau report for February. This is also in the documents of the reports. Anybody have any discussion on that item? Thank you for that information. So we'll go to 3.3, overtime report update on providing blotter reports. So just to follow up, because Councilor Moore, you'd requested this and we've been talking about it and what's keeping us from, getting the blotter reports like we had. So I just didn't want us to forget about it. I see Captain Keroy is on the Zoom meeting. Is he able to give us any updates on that, the status on that?
So this is an IT issue. Like I mentioned before, with our older records management system, there was a customized piece of software that was written that allowed us to import those directly to like the media outlets. So currently we just don't have that, and we recently haven't had the IT support to be able to do that with everything else that's been going on in the city. So this is one of the things on my list. I'm actually working to try to bridge that gap with perhaps some outside help here in the next coming weeks and months, if that helps.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And just wanted to be able to check in on how the department is staying within the budgeted overtime. Are you on track? Are you under? Are you over? Like,
yeah, so at this point, we're about 11% of the year, and we're able to hang in there. Again, as I mentioned before, we're not into our busier season for overtime, in the summer and during the events and during vacation season. But as of March 15th, we're on track.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Captain Keroy? Okay, we'll move on to number 4 for the fire department, 4.1, overtime and staffing report. And so same question for you, Chief Lawless, how are you managing the budgeted amount? So if you could give us kind of a status report on that. And also Councilor Kelly brought up a question for me yesterday that I knew I wasn't going to be able to get that on the agenda, and I was hoping that we could pose the request for information so that you could have it ready for us for next meeting. Councilor Kelly, did you want to, after Chief Lawless gives us the overtime report, did you want to ask your question? Oh, I don't know if he's there. Chief
Yeah.
Lawless.
Yes, I do. I'll do it.
Okay. So why don't we ask Chief Lawless to give us the overtime report, and then you can ask your question, Councilor Kelly.
We're on track with the overtime right now. We have had several people out due to varying reasons, which drives overtime because I have to maintain the daily staffing level. But looks to be like we're on par right now. We do have our recruits in the academy. I've got 3 in the academy. They just went down this week. They will be done on June 4th. That also helps out any overtime because it allows us to have the full contingent. One of the recruits we were able to get from the military, and after cross-referencing and getting with standards in New York State, he's able to work without having to go to the academy. So he's on shift coming up next week. We've got him doing OJT right now. I've had 2 retirements already. Well, the second one will be on the 23rd, but I have a possible 6 more people. So it's been busy time.
Okay, Counselor Kelly, did you want to go ahead and ask your question?
Sure, Elizabeth. At some point, I believe it was last year, but it could have even been the year before, we signed a memorandum of understanding with the firefighters union. At that time, we had a force of 32, and the memorandum of understanding that we, agreed to said that that number could go to 36 if they ran a second ambulance. And as I recall, a part of that agreement, a stipulation in that agreement, was that we would review that understanding at some point and see how that second ambulance was working out, and see, if that's something we wanted to continue or not. And as far as I know, we've never had that discussion about the memorandum of understanding and its effectiveness. So I asked Elizabeth over the weekend if we could have that discussion sometime soon. And she said she thought we could, but probably not this week, because it would take some time to prepare the information that we would need to review. That information, and I think, would be the memorandum itself, the cost of the additional 4 firefighters, and then the increased revenue that we got from the second ambulance. So we would need that information to review this. But I would request that we do that next public safety meeting.
So could we have then an official report that indicates the revenue from the second ambulance edition and the cost to the city? I think this is what you're asking for, Mike, a cost analysis of the
Yeah.
full cost of running the second ambulance, because it isn't just the, it's the gas, the insurance, it's,
It's the equipment.
costs.
Yeah.
So I guess what Mike's asking for, a complete, full analysis of profit and cost. Would that be correct, Mike?
Yes. Yes.
So could we have that officially put together for us by next public safety meeting in April?
Yes, I can work on that for you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
And I believe the agreement goes through December 2022.
Yeah, it does.
But I also believe the council can terminate that agreement at any time if they so desire. Is that not true?
I'd have to look through the details of it. It doesn't look, there's some open negotiations regarding health insurance plan as part of that agreement. It doesn't look like I'll have to dig through it a little bit more, but it doesn't look like it doesn't look like it can change the staffing level based on the addition of those 4 employees. But I'll have to work through that with our labor attorney and Scott.
What does that mean? It would not change the staffing level of our four employees.
The agreement for the staffing level looks like it goes through to the to December 31st, 2022. That the city was going to hire 4 more firefighters no later than the 28th of February of 2020. The agreements that the provision itself would sunset on the December 31st, 2022.
Another thing I'd like to have an explanation about is why only 10 of our current firefighters actually perform ambulance duties. That's my understanding. We have 36 firefighters, but only 10 of them are EMTs, and I wonder why that is.
I can answer that right now, if you'd like.
Mhm.
That number is not true. They have to maintain EMT for the first 15 years of employment. So we have quite a few more than that. Last check, we have over 30 EMS personnel. Many are above the level of basic EMT.
Of those 30, do they all participate in EMT duties?
Yes, at different levels. They may not be assigned to the ambulance, but they are all responding whether for any help. If you have a cardiac arrest, you will send an engine along with it to add 3 personnel. There's multiple things to be doing. It could be a respiratory arrest. It could be drug overdoses where there's multiple things to do and you're getting into advanced support. That's where everybody comes in and performs EMS duties.
I think at that next public safety meeting, then I'd also like to request that we see a breakdown of who works on the ambulance and what their various functions are.
Okay. All right. I just want to make it clear that the engines are staffed with, are also staffed with EMS, and they have EMS equipment on the engines. So it's not just an ambulance that runs to some of these calls.
Yes. Anyone who lives in the city is aware of that because we witness the fire trucks going out quite often with the, alongside the ambulances. So it'd just be nice to know what the exact numbers are.
Yes.
Okay, any other questions?
Elizabeth, may I ask the Chief Lawless a question?
Oh, of course, of course.
Chief, I remember maybe a month ago or so that we approved the purchasing of some electronic, the word that's coming to mind is gurney, but stretchers.
Yes.
And did you guys get those already?
They will be here in April, less than a month. The other stretchers have to come in, and then we're getting our stretchers.
Okay, perfect. I was just curious as to how they're working out, but obviously we haven't gotten them yet. That can't be.
I think it's going to be a very positive thing for our staff.
Thank you, Chief.
Okay, so item 4.2, discussion specialty training.
Yes, we've got our confined space training was developed. We have the equipment. We were getting the team together. We're going to be utilizing that for industries in the area that we can subcontract out. It will be a revenue generator for us. Currently, a lot of the industries in the city and outlying areas rely on a third party to come in from, could be Syracuse, Albany, anywhere else like that. Whereas now they would contact us, we would charge them a fee, and we'd be able to provide that service locally. So that's developed. That should be starting in the beginning of April, our training, and that'll go along with, we'll also start our water rescue training in this spring.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Chief Lawless about that? Okay, item 4.3, discussion EMT bridge program.
Bridge program starts on April 4th. I have had 6 members sign up to become bridge from a critical EMT to a paramedic. And that's a year-long training for them.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Chief Lawless about that? Okay, item 4.4, discussion call response report, EMS and fire.
Do you want the yearly numbers?
Sure.
But we've already got, we're at 189 fire calls for the year and 609 EMS calls responses for the year.
Now, is that a pretty standard number, or is that an increase, a decrease? Like, how
We're
does it compare
tracking
to
along.
previous year?
No, we're tracking about that. There's certain times of the year we'll get an increase in certain types of calls. Right now, things are going right on track to what we expect.
So of the 189 fire calls, how many, I don't know if you can answer this off, right now, but of those, how many are actually structure fires of the 189 fire calls?
I wouldn't be able, I'd have to look it up, but I can tell you we had one on Friday. So that was on Court Street. We went mutual aid today to the fire on South Junction Road. So
Yeah, I
that
saw
was
that in the news.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's we arrived first, so to South Junction Road. So that's
Mhm.
tells you response differences. Right, so that's two structure fires in less than a week.
So when you provide mutual aid to outside the city, are you typically the first on the scene?
South Plattsburgh, it depends on where it is, time of day. This was at 7:30 in the morning, so a lot of people were on their way to work. So we're already en route to their job, would have to turn around and come by. We're staffed and ready to go. So typically, I would say 3/4 of the time.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Chief Lawless?
Yeah, Chief, where was the fire on Court Street?
It was down on across from Walker Funeral Home.
It
I
was
can't pull up the name. It was a law office.
68. It's
68.
68. Yep. Dolphin and Inslee.
Really? Right across the street from where I am right now. Okay.
It was minor. It was minor and very, very quickly contained.
The dehumidifier had caught on fire in the basement where they stored all of their legal records. So they started to catch on fire. It's a 3-story unit, and the tenants on the 3rd story started getting smoke. So they alerted us. We got there. First floor had heavy smoke pushing out, but with thermal imaging cameras, once they found it, we were able to put it out quickly. Very little bit of water, so there wasn't much damage. Ventilate the building, get the smoke out quick so it doesn't do any damage to them. And they're still doing business today.
Thank you, Chief.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item 5. 5.1, Mayor, this is going to be your discussion.
Yes, Counselor. So over the last several months, I guess we should say this last summer, the Public Safety Review Panel had gotten together. They made a list of 20 recommendations. Those recommendations went to community for community feedback and public feedback. Once those recommendations were complete, they came to another small committee of folks, another small group of folks that consisted of myself, Councilor Gibbs, Councilor Canales, Bonnie Black, Dr. Cromwell, Hillary, I forgot Hillary's last name. I'm sorry, Hillary, and then Jamie Dothett.
Rogers.
Thank you. Who reviewed the panel's recommendations and, oh, sorry, Brad was in there too. Who reviewed the panel's recommendations and started to formulate a plan to implement those recommendations. Based on the work that we've completed, the plan has been sent out to this body. I believe it got sent out to the Public Safety Committee as well as the group that reviewed the recommendations to create the plan. I don't know if the other counselors received it at this point. Have y'all received this plan, Councilor McFarland? No? Okay, I'll make sure it gets sent out tonight.
Oh, I forwarded it to Mike and Jeff and Patrick. Did you guys get it?
Not that I recall seeing, but let me check my email here.
Jeff, did you get it? Jeff, you're on mute.
No, I didn't see it, Elizabeth, but it may be on there now, but I didn't notice it.
As soon as it came out to us, I forwarded the email to you and Mike and Patrick.
Oh, Elizabeth, I did get it at 3:33 this afternoon.
Okay, good.
Okay, well, that's how I would have missed it.
Yeah,
Okay.
great. So good, thank you. So there are some grammatical and structural changes to it, nothing major. Dean made some recommended changes to it, which I made those changes and then resent out. So there should be a fairly rough, more refined draft, I should say, that got sent out later on this afternoon. The next step on this is to send it out to public, which we have plans for tomorrow with a press release, and which will also get posted on Facebook and our social channels as well as the website. We'll open a forum for comment from the website as well, which we'll share share that forum on our social channels to start to get public feedback on the actual plan itself for implementing the recommendations. We spent probably 6 hours in total, or six or 7 hours or 8 hours or so as a group working on this, and then spent another couple hours putting together just the outline of the plan that we had discussed, which will then be sent out. Once we get public feedback and comment, we'll make any adjustments and changes to the plan that got sent out. Then from there, the adoption of the plan, there'll be a resolution to adopt the plan by this council, and then subsequently additional resolutions to implement individual components and parts of the plan itself. But there'll be a blanket resolution to adopt the plan, and that's the other question. I think we'll be fine with passing that resolution on the 31st to adopt the plan and then start to implement the individual components of the plan as designed. But once we adopt the plan itself, we have to submit a plan certification form to the Department of Budget, which I have that form ready to be completed and signed along with the plan itself. And I'll also submit the resolution that was adopted as well.
So was the intention for us to go over the recommendations and discuss them tonight as the legislative body?
Chairwoman, that would be entirely up to you if that's what you would like to do. I mean, I'm not opposed to it, and if that's something that you want to spend our time on right now, we can certainly do that.
Does the council want to discuss this plan now? Councilors?
I think it'd be best if we have a special meeting to discuss this further. Councilor Gibbs, it's up to you, but I think that would be best.
Jeff?
Well, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea, Elizabeth, to just go over an outline of what we're talking about, so that people would know where we're at with this.
I'm fine with that. Elizabeth, Beth, can you share the allow me to share my screen? I can share the recommendations in the plan, and then we can all just kind of go over it from there.
Yeah, so I mean, you sent out some information already, and we got a couple of counselors who've brought this up about having a special meeting. And I know that's something you and I have spoken about as well. My preference would be that we have a resolution next week during a special meeting to expedite the process before having our regular meeting on the 31st. But that's my preference. So, but it seems like the council wants to go over the recommendations, and I think that would be a good idea for us to discuss any concerns or ideas that council has now.
Is the deadline for this March 31st?
Yeah, it has to be filed with the state by April 1st. So for our purposes, March 31st.
Yeah, I would recommend we do that a couple days early, because I would imagine that every municipality in the state is going to be attempting to do this very late in the month.
Sorry, just to be clear, it's on or before the 1st. It's not, it does not have to be done on the 31st. It's on or before April 1st.
Well, I would recommend that we maybe try to do it a couple of days before the 31st, just so we don't run into problems, submitting our particular form. And I would hate to see us get into a position where, the state's website, for example, goes down and we can't log in. We can't do what we need to do to get it done on time. I know we'd probably be forgiven, but it doesn't look good. I'd like to have it done early.
Okay. Well, just as a point of clarification, it's an email address that we send the plan and the certification form to.
Okay. I'd still like to see it done a day or two early if possible. What's today, the 15th? I believe we probably could get it done by, say the 30th or.
So just also keep in mind that we do have a meeting on the 31st scheduled already, a regular meeting on the calendar. So I'd want to take a look at either having just a special meeting then earlier in that week and holding our regular meeting on the 31st again. But like I said, I'm not, given the work that we've done with the group already and the work, sending this plan out to public, I'm personally not concerned I'm certainly not as concerned as I was going into this, but I'm not gonna, say we don't have to wait until the 31st. If we want to have a special meeting, just for concern that we're not going to be able to submit this via email, then, we can have a meeting a couple days beforehand.
Okay.
We received it today at 3:31, I think it was. So I need time to look at it, and I can't really comment on it tonight, even though, I guess we're going to go into a discussion of it. It would be good to have some time to digest it and then get back together for a special meeting, perhaps next week.
For discussion of the document more extensively, Mike, is that what you're saying?
I think that'd be a good idea, Elizabeth. Yes.
Well, we will have to come back after public comment to, we'd have to come back after public comment to make any changes to the plan itself. And so we will have to give some time. I was hoping to give at least a week to allow for public comment, and then taking a couple days after to incorporate some of those changes with the original group that got together to create the plan based on the recommendations. We can find a time after that as well to meet to discuss specifically with the council on the plan itself, and then create resolution to adopt. We'd have to draft a resolution to adopt the plan, and then post notice for a special meeting later on in that week.
Well, we don't have a council meeting scheduled for a week from this Thursday. What would that be? The 18th, 7th, 8th, 25th? Perhaps the 25th would be a good time for that special meeting.
Yeah, I can meet that Thursday.
I can meet if we meet earlier. I have a vaccine appointment that night and I'm not going to miss that appointment. So, I mean, I can meet that day, but if we could move that meeting up to like 4 o'clock, that would be better.
Okay, so just so that we're clear here, if we post this publicly for tomorrow, we give a week for public comment. That closes the public comment for the 23rd. That's next Tuesday. That gives the committee that created plan Wednesday to come back together to discuss any updates or changes to the plan. Then having a council meeting on the 25th to review the plan. Then having a special meeting the week of the 29th to adopt the plan.
Well, if we have a special meeting on the 25th, we can discuss it and then adopt it. And if we need more time to discuss or change anything, then we can, go back to the 31st.
Do we have any meetings, the last week besides the
Yes.
31st? No, we don't,
No,
do we? It's just the
No,
31st.
it's a holiday weekend, so we had to move our regular meeting from that Thursday to the Wednesday.
So you're saying close the public comment on the 23rd. Wednesday, you're thinking a meeting of the legislative body and the sampling of the panel. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
And then a council review on the 25th. That would be, we could call that a special meeting because it's not scheduled.
Yeah, the only concern I have with that is it gives the council from now until next week to review the plan as is, but it doesn't give the council room or enough time. And I it's up to you all then at that point. If having that time together on the 25th is going to be enough to review the plan plus the changes that come back from public comment.
What about Monday, the 29th then, as a special meeting for the council to review, adopt? I mean, what about that as a possibility? Monday, March 29th as a special meeting?
Or Friday.
Or Friday. Well, that's right, I forgot Friday. It's Friday the 26th too.
Yeah. Like I said, I'm fine. I'm also fine with waiting to the 31st to adopt as well. I really don't see much need to press for a special meeting just to adopt this before then. But if you guys want to press on that, then I'm fine with that.
Well, how does council feel about having a special meeting Monday, March 29th to do a final review, resolution, do all of it? Dean, what are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I was just gonna suggest, since it sounds like several of the council members haven't had the opportunity to review it, why doesn't everyone put a pause in this conversation, review it, and then on Thursday, if the need of a special meeting arises, we could schedule it at that point. I'm in the camp of the mayor that it's not, the heavy lift has been done already. The resolution itself is likely to be pretty straightforward. And I'm not worried about submitting the email on the day of. That seems, very, very easy to do.
Okay, so I thought it ended up having to go through a portal, but it sounds like you're just submitting a document to an email. Is that it, Mayor? So it is actually pretty easy. It's like basically a checklist.
It's a 2-page, it's not even 2 pages, it's 1 page, 5 items that's check marked. So you can see that, if you can see that, check marked.
Yep.
And so it's essentially affirming that we've done the process, which we have done the process. I feel very confident that we followed through on the actual process as outlined in the executive order. And then it's an email with this certification form and the plan itself.
Okay, all right, so does, Dean, I like your suggestion. Why don't we discuss some of it tonight? Council has time to review it between now and Thursday, and then we can make a determination this Thursday at council if we would like to have a special meeting. Does that sound like a good plan for everybody?
Yes.
Yes, Mike? Councilor
Yes.
Canales, what do you say? Jeff, what about you?
I would be good with that.
Okay, all right, so why don't we go over the plan then?
Okay.
Oh, Patrick just texted me, he got kicked off.
Patrick got kicked off?
Yeah, he just.
I
texted
got
me.
kicked off earlier. I was
Oh,
responding
okay.
to your earlier text. He said, "Where are you?"
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, Mayor, would you like to go over
Yes.
it with us then?
Sharing my Okay, can y'all see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is the Public Safety Review Panel recommendations. In each recommendation, there's a category that has been categorized by the panel themselves, which I put in a more of a heading style. And then underneath each heading of the recommendation is the actual recommendation by number. And so that's the format of it. The other part is the city's response. You'll see City of Plattsburgh underlined and bolded. And then the city's response to that. And again, these responses are based on the subcommittee, or should say the committee of the sampling of Public Safety Review Panel participants and a number of city, I think there was you, Councilor Gibbs, myself, and Councilor Canales, Dean Schneller, and then Brad Keyroy, Captain Keyroy from Plattsburgh City Police Department. The first recommendation is to adopt, essentially adopt a review panel that is going to continue to work to assist in the development of the implementation of the plan. We do acknowledge that it would be beneficial in creating a working group self-selected by the original Public Safety Review Panel, who the city would go to during the implementation of this plan and provide regular progress reports. The second group, the second heading is increased staff knowledge and education. Part of the recommendation is to create a crisis intervention team where the city does agree that exploring and implementing a city Plattsburgh specific CIT, crisis intervention team, is our priority, and we'll continue to investigate what that model is for the city of Plattsburgh. We'll also research the funding requirements, training, personnel requirements for us to implement such thing. And then part of our concern, though, was that because this is a city of Plattsburgh specific crisis intervention team, we do have to acknowledge that there are a number of other public safety agencies that operate within the city of Plattsburgh and operate and have jurisdiction within the city of Plattsburgh. State Police, SUNY Campus, Clinton County Sheriff's Department, who may not adhere to or follow a similar or same crisis intervention approach. So if they are responding to public safety calls within the community, they may not follow the same process for identifying whether this is a response that requires a public safety response or a armed officer response versus a health professional or mental health professional to respond. So that's one thing that we need to address as a concern of ours. And please, look, I'm just gonna run through these. I am gonna run through these. If y'all have any questions, just please interject. I can't see I can't see the screen, your images, so I'm just looking at the document, but just chime in if you need to.
Mayor, isn't that kind of redundant in so far as the county has, mental health people, child welfare services,
the difference,
all these things?
Yeah, Councilor Moore, the difference here is that this crisis intervention team, even though the county has mental health professionals, this is something that is done primarily in real time during a call to our dispatch. The dispatcher, we can get into the training of that. And that is part of the training that we address later on in this plan. The training is such that the dispatcher would identify, is this a mental health crisis call, or is this a call for an armed uniformed officer, and then would make the determination in how it gets routed. But this is a team of people rather than a mental health and addiction department, if you will.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The third recommendation is to increase department staffing budget and create mental management. That's something that we are actively in pursuit of right now. And I believe a couple of you have had conversations with Councilor Gibbs regarding a public safety management package that we are looking to pass into local law later on in the month. The fourth recommendation is that all the staff are required to complete comprehensive training, including implicit bias training, principal policies, and national best practices. We do acknowledge that this is crucial to creating a stable public safety approach and a holistic public safety approach. And currently we are within our 5th month of implementing the Police One training platform. And part of that platform outlines a number of training modules that are required or will be required based on this new plan. And we've outlined and listed a number of those training modules here. The 5th recommendation is to increase workforce diversity by establishing a recruiting program that identifies and focuses on underrepresented populations. Again, this is something that we're actively pursuing and designing a recruiting program that we're looking to have commence in the middle of May. My request, I should say the mayor's request, is that the implementation of this program is coupled with some type of marketing strategy that does include where these recruiting locations are going to be located, address some funding for marketing, and an actual strategy for actively engaging diverse and underrepresented communities for recruiting. Something that's a little more tangible than just saying, hey, yeah, we're doing this thing. On the build relationships and community trust heading, there was a number of recommendations in this. There were 6 actually recommendations of the 20 recommendations that we felt like this probably took the lion's share of importance for the public safety review panel in our community, which is build relationships and trust. And that's something that we want to see our public safety professionals do and our police force do. Recommendation.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question on that when you get a chance?
Go ahead.
So I noticed that's their number one thing, and I thought of this when Ms. Black presented it. Their number one recommendation, if I remember, I can't zoom up because this is your screen, was for increased foot patrols.
Yeah.
And I remember that being a recommendation of the Livable Communities Committee as well. But it's my understanding that will need to be, that's controlled by the police union contract. Is that correct?
I don't think I'm as familiar with that, and I never heard that being a part of the required negotiation. Captain, do you have any insight into that?
There is some latitude in that, but we do currently have a program where officers are assigned foot patrols on a temporary basis, meaning that they're not assigned for a 12-hour shift on a foot patrol. But foot patrols are something that we've done for many years. Targeted foot patrols in areas, area of primary responsibility foot patrols, that type of thing. But the current collective bargaining agreement definitely covers a certain amount of foot patrols per shift.
So I just think we should keep that in mind when we engage in. I don't know what the police contract says off the top of my head, but I think we should keep that recommendation in mind when we go to negotiations on the contract update.
Yeah. Thank you. So a number of these, increased foot patrol, in staff the community center, intervention programs require officers to carry business cards with some type of, with some type of information to share on them. Let's see what else. Continue work with task force and other community groups, education on Good Samaritan laws, community feedback mechanism. And we believe that these are all crucial. And more importantly, we feel like it should be more addressed on a full scale strategy, which include a number of these, but also address different methods of engagement using community venues and other offices, utilizing the downtown, that downtown community center to not only focus on downtown, but as a community, but throughout the community as a whole. And there's a number of other recommendations that we're saying should be part of this plan as well.
So before we move on to number 13, I really like Captain Keroy to get an opportunity to let the council hear from him, things that he had shared with us on Saturday when we met about his whole community approach, which is that basically that whole slate of 6 through 12. And he's got some really great, innovative, and interesting ideas. And I really would like him to have the ability to share with council, since we are all here, his thoughts on what he could do with that whole community approach. Captain, would you like to share that with everyone?
Sure, Elizabeth. So I don't have my notes that I had the other day, unfortunately, but the community, or the city response that the mayor's showing does pinpoint several of those. And this whole community approach with outreach really boils down to not limiting ourselves to one segment of the population. I believe that our outreach program should focus on not only the downtown business owners and the downtown community, but also youth, senior citizens, folks that live in public housing, residential communities such as the center city, and being able to host outreach incentives such as periodic town halls, question and answer opportunities for folks to attend and listen to the police department's views on certain issues in the city, as well as being able to listen to the community responses. Excuse me one second, I'm just trying to find some of the things that I wrote. We do have 3 different officers in the police department, Officer Miller in the community center, Officer Rotella at public housing, and Officer Wolf is our youth officer. I would like to see those 3 officers work as a team in implementing the programs that the police chief comes up with for this type of approach. There are several things that we can focus on. One of the questions that had come to me was in response to the CIT, being able to use a training approach to allow all of our officers to develop a mindset when we're dealing with mental health calls, to treat them very much in the same manner that we treat domestic violence calls. In that, in domestic violence calls, we have a mechanism in place where we can make referrals to stop domestic violence. In this case, we'd be able to make referrals to Clinton County Mental Health, perhaps. Having the officers trained in a more inclusive role outside of traditional police response to mental health, that type of thing. But there are a number of things that we can do here that I think are pretty well represented in the mayor's response.
Captain, can I ask a question?
Certainly.
Number 10, I believe it was. Yeah, continued involvement in community task forces that serve high needs populations that are likely to interface with Plattsburgh City.
Sure.
So continued involvement, what community task forces are our police forces involved in right now?
Well, historically, we've been involved in several. I mean, whether it be Clinton County Mental Health or addictive services, Stop Domestic Violence, Stop DWI, traffic safety. I mean, there are a number of different task forces that we share a seat at the table with. In recent years, our ability to attend all of those and to maintain those relationships has gone down simply because of the staffing. I hate to say that, but that's certainly true. The Child Advocacy Center, all of these programs are very vital to our relationship with folks that live in the city, and being able to restore our relationships with these task forces would really benefit our ability to serve these underrepresented populations.
So are we no longer, so I didn't realize those were task forces. Are we no longer involved with, the only task force I can think of off the top of my head is the Adirondack Drug Task Force. I'm not sure if that's what they're referring to in here, but those ones that you mentioned, are we no longer involved in those?
We are involved in them, just not to the same extent that we were, say, 5 years ago. It would be my intention to really step up our ability to interact with those individuals. And again, especially with the mental health response, be able to to develop these relationships where we can get the training that we really need moving forward, to adapt our response to those types of calls.
Yeah, no, I meant to reach out to Miss Black after, and I haven't had the time. But I remember one of their recommendations was for mental health. So I wasn't sure what the idea was there. Was the idea to sort of have civilian mental health experts that are be able to like go out on calls with our police officers if they get called to a situation where it's likely that a mental health issue has arisen?
Are you referring to the CIT?
I don't know what I'm referring to.
Yeah,
I know what
I believe
CIT
so.
means.
So that is the model, and it's essentially a trained task for a trained group of individuals that where mental health calls that may not necessarily be a public safety threat per se. Instead of sending the police to those, you send these responders, and they have specialized training in mental health. But they also do include police. So it's a response that's untraditional, but it's growing in popularity and use throughout the country.
And I think I read that the Denver Police Department is having some success with something like that.
That's correct. I mean, in several areas, there's success with it. Again, ideally, we would be able to draw from different resources, like a regional approach, to be able to, have those resources at our disposal for such a team. Unfortunately, at least initially, it looks like this is going to be something that's city specific.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
The other recommendation from the panel was develop alternative response models, very much similar to creating response models like a crisis intervention team, dual response with other law enforcement and community agencies. And this for us went right back to the panel recommendation number 2, where the city of Plattsburgh is going to develop and implement a crisis intervention team model, but not only implement it or research the design and implementation of it, and all and what that would take for the city, but also combine that with an annual review of the model, quarterly review lessons learned, and an annual report that's supplied to the mayor and reported out to the community and community advocates, including the group, the subset that's going to be formally created as part of the partnership in this plan. The review panel recommendation under the heading Address Transparency and Accountability. There was a number of items in here. The formatting got a little wonky, but the panel recommendation number 14 was expand and track data collection on police interactions complaints, and then require some type of annual report or some type of report to the public and the council. There are a number of, we do agree with it. That's certainly the fundamental approach here, is that we do agree and feel, that the underlying concern is to ensure that our city is not, and our public safety professionals aren't implicitly or otherwise approaching people from a particular bias, but rather treating people fairly and reasonably. The concern for the city is that there are a number of interactions that don't require collecting demographic data, and in some cases it's a violation of civil rights to collect that type of data. So understanding those concerns, we do have a number of interactions that do require that information, and for us to ensure that when we do collect that information, we can report out what those things are. But then in addition to reporting out, when we do have the opportunity to collect that information, we will look at reinstating the quality control patrol division, which is essentially a evaluation of traffic stops, interactions, and any other increased concerns that are addressed or raised by the public, which will also culminate in reports that are going to be passed to the public. One of the more, I don't want to say controversial, but one of the more, in terms of the panel anyway, one of the more discussed panel recommendations was the implementation of body cameras. And as we have seen in the U.S., this is becoming increasingly becoming a standard in U.S. Policing, and there are significant hurdles to accomplishing this. Primarily, resource, cost to purchase, cost to implement, maintain, update both the physical hardware, which gets broken, just as anything else does, the software that needs to be updated, the storage, the content management, all of these things that do need to get addressed as part of that implementation. So my recommendation and the panel's recommendation was to first understand what those hurdles are, understand the costs involved, the costs associated with the implementation, hardware, software, storage, and maintenance of body cameras, address or at least understand what some of the collective bargaining agreement concerns are. A little typo right there. Address the need and understand the need for additional personnel to manage the software and the content. And then also, as addressed in Executive Order 203, we need to quantify our community's actual need for the use of body cameras. Some of these things, some of these recommendations we felt were spot on. Some of them, we do have to quantify, does our community require the actual recommendation? And so rather than saying, yes, it does or no, it doesn't, we have to figure out how do we quantify the actual the actual need for the community and the actual hurdle when it comes to addressing the implementation of body cameras, and then make the decision either to pursue it or not to pursue it based on some quantifiable data. This panel recommendation 16, upon the complaint or subject management report, the police department shall immediately investigate and handle accordance to the department's policies and procedures following an investigation, having some type of report that gets sent out regarding the resolution. So again, this is something as a policy that we actively do investigate police disciplinary actions and complaints. In fact, we just had 2 people call today to express some concern, and the immediate response is, okay, let's look into it. Let's figure out what's going on. Is there an actual police complaint that needs to get resolved? But it does all get documented. And the question here is, how do we, as a city, report it out in a timely manner that's both responsible and clear for public consumption? The recommendation regarding addressing staff wellness, recommendation number 17, to develop a burnout prevention strategy that includes some compassion, fatigue, and resilience training. And again, we do have an employment assistant program, and there is an opportunity to explore and implement a mental health first aid training that is provided through that employee assistance program in partnership with the provider themselves. And the other recommendation for addressing staff wellness is to review shift durations with a focus on staff wellness. And we recognize that multiple days of 12-hour shifts can be mentally and physically taxing on our staff, especially if something mentally taxing happens during that time. And that's it. Our police officers do work in a very stressful environment that we do take their both their personal safety and their mental health serious. There may be some questions regarding the the collective bargaining agreement regarding staffing these different shifts and changing the shift structure, but then also making sure that if we do change the shift structure, that there is some type of that there is going to be staffing levels that will likely also need to change with a changing shift structure as well. So it's something for us to not only explore if we do change the shift schedule, but also work with the bargaining unit, as well as identify the need to hire more staff to make that adjustment. Subject management report. The change of the report to reflect the use of use of force, deadly physical force policies. This again, something that that's actively in place, and the training actively addresses the current use of force policy, and then ensuring that the training for this policy is a priority for all members of our city police. Behavior under the heading behavioral health calls should have a behavioral health response. Again, per the panel's recommendation number 2 and number 4, we felt that this fell into that the development of a CIT to respond to calls, and certainly to follow that rubric of what type of call is this? Does it require a mental health call response, or does it call for a uniformed armed officer response? But again, this is part of that CIT that we had discussed in response to the types of calls that are coming in, and also leveraging our training platform to deliver that mental health response training to all of our city PD staff. So overall, I know that was a fairly quick review, but I certainly do encourage everybody to take a look at what did get sent out. If you just hold tight with me, I'm going to scroll to the top, because there's another document that will go along with this, which is called the Crisis Intervention Team Programs, a best practice guide for transforming community response to mental health crisis. This is a 240-page document that does outline how to develop a crisis intervention team that we will ultimately use to help guide us through this process. They are good ideas, by the way. I'm responding to one of the councilors on this call right now. It was very comprehensive. I do appreciate everybody who spent the time to not only to develop these recommendations. I know it was a process to get to this point of creating these recommendations and presenting the recommendations to the city after that work was done. But I also want to thank and acknowledge everybody else who stepped up and helped go through those recommendations to create this initial plan. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I will make sure, I think at this point, everybody does have the updated document. If you don't, just please, oh yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm just getting a call. I'm just getting a message that the zoning board is waiting to start, but you're just gonna have to wait for a moment. Sorry. I'm not saying that to be rude. I'm just, letting people know that we're not quite done yet. So that's where things are at with this, with the plan. And again, we'll send this out to public comment for the next week. And then once we get it back, we'll work to find a time for the council to come back and review the remainder of the plan and the final document. I will put a narrative, a message from the city of Plattsburgh ahead of the plan to address all the work that has been put into it and the need and the importance of these types of policy reviews. I felt like the plan itself was quite comprehensive. The recommendations were a good fit for the community, and I feel like a number of the people who worked on the plan expressed some concerns over the recommendations, but overall agreed that it was good to take a look at them. Councilor Gibbs, back to you.
Okay. All right. So everyone now has a document. You've got time to really review it and examine the recommendations. And we will have our regular council meeting this week, and it's going to go up for review. And then we've agreed that we may or may not call a special meeting. So we'll regroup on this Thursday to decide, what's happening next. So do we have any new business? Mayor, I think you had something for new business, right?
Yes, we have 2 items in new business. One is we do need to have a discussion. I believe Dean, myself, and Brad, we need to have a discussion regarding the language in the local law regarding enforcement of the public area of public parking area in the Clinton County parking lot. And so you all may see, and this is just heads up, nothing to do right now. You all may see a resolution come through, most likely towards the end of the month, regarding changes to the code. I believe it would be regarding enforcement of parking in permit controlled parking lots. So we'll take a look at that and then get back to you all. Then the other piece was the Basic Academy Training Director contract. This is a contract that comes up every year. It will come up for renewal this year. I believe it gets renewed in April, but I don't know if this is a professional service contract. So does this get passed by council, or is this something that I can inform council of and then sign it? I don't know.
We've always had to approve those in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that will come up for vote. This will get sent out, and that will come up for vote either. Will probably come up for vote at the end of the month on the 31st.
On the 31st?
Correct.
Okay. And do we have an update for the council regarding the progress on the management package for public safety? Will that be ready for introduction this Thursday as we had thought?
That is a inshore. I don't know, Patrick. We'll talk about that. I don't know what you're trying to say. The contract says inshore instead of enshore, which is a pet peeve. Okay, good. We'll make sure that the contract has the right language, Patrick. That is going to be introduced as a local law on the 18th for public comment on the 31st and adoption on the 30th. Okay.
Just want.
There's also another local law that will come up on the 18th as well. I don't recall what it is off the top of my head, but you'll see that come on the 18th.
Food trucks, Mayor.
Oh, food truck. Yeah, sorry, food truck. The food truck local law will come up on the 18th. Will be introduced to the council, introduced to the public for public comment on the 31st and adoption on the 31st.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else have any new business for public safety? Okay, seeing none, do we have anybody present for public comment? Beth, do we have anybody who would like to make a public comment?
We have one person, but nobody's raising their hand.
Okay, seeing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All right, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so carried. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate all of your contributions, and we will see everybody